Welcome to OG Foundation, capital of the sovereign state of Elodium. I am your host, Sovereign Non of Elodium. And this week let me turn it around. This week I'm gonna be working on these ferro-cement projects. There's good weather and I think I can focus on this now. So this is how far I've got in this kind of bunker type structure. And I got to start on the walls, and so I'm gonna add another layer of lath on either side. And then I'm going to try a different product over the top, whether it's like a screen mesh or some other kind of fiberglass mesh, and then work up the backside and try to get as much coverage on this thing as possible before going on to the next arches. And also with this column up there, get that next section in before it gets to the change of shape. So those are all the goals, as well as the concrete on the far end as well, bringing that up. So we'll see how it goes. So after 2 batches on Saturday, I got some good extra coverage in areas where I just got 1 coat primarily. And then kind of working the rebar in over there. And so I'm going to aim to do 1 more batch today, make it really wet to get backing on areas like that where there's only 1 coat, and right over there, and wherever else needs a wet coat to finish off for today. And then I'm putting in this piece of remesh right here, which is going to go on the ground level on the bedrock between the base of this arch and the column there. So that'll be kind of the base level wall to keep the cows out, which will end up getting crenellated. So yeah. So after the second batch on Sunday, there's a pretty smooth coat on the outside here, and there's a pretty smooth coat on all of the inside here. So that's basically 3 layers, because there's the base layer, and then there's an extra coat on the inside and outside. And then over here I got a second coat on most of the top area, but on the far side I haven't gotten one, and there's a good bit left on the back. So I'm going to do 1 more batch of mortar, see if I can't get some coverage on the back of that. And then over here I set up this kind of formwork to do 1 more cattle panel on the bottom, connecting that column with over here, though it's not even touching the ground right now because I've got to dig out a lot of dirt to clean up that bedrock before I actually want to connect to it. But there's 2 pieces of rebar coming up from the bottom corners, crossing in the middle, and I should be able to get a good bit of coverage on this to anchor it in and get it going everywhere where the plywood is. So in addition to the 3 batches of mortar today, just got 1 more done. Well, 3 total. But the other thing that was in addition was getting this goat pen all done. So the goats are all moved in here now, and they got a big old space for grazing. Oh, sorry, buddy. And it goes all the way back over here. Where's like your grazing? Good boys. So it's Monday midday. You can see how the 3rd batch turned out yesterday. Well, actually a lot of it's on the outside over there to get a second coat, but the walls are rising. Over here I did a piece of rebar to connect into the wall here, so that'll be an important structural element once it's all mortared in. And what I've done here is use this new product. So I want to talk a little bit about 2 new products that I'm using. One is these ties. They're like grocery bag ties. It's like the thinnest metal, and then it's got like a rubberized coating on it, so it doesn't kind of hurt your fingers when you twist the thin metal. And then I'm using this fiberglass mesh, which is like a quarter inch roughly size mesh, and I'm draping it on the outside of the cattle panel because it's easier. So I just like rolled it over the top, and so I'm going to try to get a coat over this as much as I can with a really sticky coat with lots of fiberglass fiber in it. So we'll see how I can manage with that. So that turned out really well. Going over that fiberglass mesh with the masonry tools works really well. I'm usually doing things with my gloves and by hand, but in this circumstance Most of it was with the tools, and it went really well. I got a full bond beam across the top, and lots of coverage on that side, lots of coverage on this side, and then tying together the mesh with the existing structure. This is really the ideal size. The screen is too small to like push mortar through, but this is just the right size where you can push it through if you want, but you can also relatively easily just smear over it. So really happy with that result. And once this cures, the first arch shape which connects the two foundations makes the structure really strong, so I'll be able to like lean ladders against it and stuff. And basically I'll just have to do the inner coat to fully encase the cattle panel, but doing it like this saves lots of time for not having to do wire ties on the middle, and just turns out really well with the three new materials being the cattle panel, the fiberglass mesh, and like the grocery bag kind of ties which are pre-cut and everything. Okay, so that's off now. I may or may not be able to get another batch on today, but that was great. Tuesday morning, and I'm using these tools to apply a batch with lots of fiber in it over the fiber. So 2 batches in on Tuesday. Over here there's a first inner coat to kind of at least mostly encase the cattle panel, though there's gonna have to be at least one more coat on the inside to fully enclose the cattle panel. And then all this I'm gonna get covered in the next batch, ideally, as long as I can get up to the top. I'm gonna get at least one more batch on today. It's Wednesday morning, and this is basically, even though it doesn't have an undercoat on a good bit of this, it's still, as far as up here, it's pretty strong. Like, I could definitely put a bucket of mortar up there. I feel if I jumped up there, things would start cracking. Like, it would support me, but there would be a number of like cracks from the shape changing. So the shape still does change a little. I don't know if you can see, it moves a little. Like, you can see the far end of it like shaking as I move this, but it's pretty solid. The sidewalls give it a lot of like rigidity if there's some sidewalls, because of it being just a thin shell, but it's surprisingly strong. And so today just gonna get more coverage on here and see how far I can get. And then also I want to put a piece of rebar up along the spine, and then put rings in it to hang rings down to be able to hang lights or something along the spine of the structure, so the middle of it for light. So I'll do that first. And then here's how the outside is looking. So there's a second batch all through there, and then there's only one there and there. So ideally I'll get a second coat on the areas that have one batch as well, that are at least a day old. Over there it's fresher, so it'll need to dry more before I can get a second coat on it. It's Wednesday evening, and I'm mid-mortar batch. I'm working on getting the sidewall up. I got lime mix kind of onto the rock, and then now I've mixed the concrete over it to bond with the rock. You can see here where there's still lime, but there's dirt there as well, so I want to clean that up a bit more. But basically bringing this wall up, and then over here I connected the dome structure with that arch with a piece of rebar and some lath connecting, so I want to get some mortar on that. And then up top here I'm putting some rings in the rebar along the top like ridge of it, so I can hang like lights from the inside. Woo, almost fell. And you can see here how this rebar will connect this arch into here, so that it connects as simply as possible, and basically the shape of this structure continues up until it hits the arch structure. And taking the steps so that I can integrate all this, and then I'll basically be working my way that way to get this arch and that arch as I'm simultaneously filling out this structure. So on to the next 2 buckets of the batch. Thursday morning, and today we're killing 3 birds with 1 stone. So you see that insulation panel? Well, it's not an insulation panel, it's a solar panel up there, but it's going to act as a form of thermal insulation for this whole part of Molly the Dragon. Her whole forehead shield and we're going to give it some thermal armor plating, which is also her dragon scales and is also electrical generation. So I put the first one up and tried to maximize the kind of shade that it provides to the uninsulated area underneath as I'm kind of able to mount it up there. I'm going to foam mount it all, and I'm going to run the next one off of that one, and before you know it, Molly the dragon is going to have solar panel dragon scale armor and is going to be much more energized. See how it goes. So I'm not sure if it really looks like dragon scales, but it is covering the dragon, and it's working. I've got 2 or 3 more to put up. So it's Friday afternoon, and I'm back to the tunnel type structure. I don't know, bunker. It's kind of like a bunker, isn't it? A little bit like a bunker. The buttress for the double arch, and I freed up that ladder which was leaning against that, so now I can get up top there and get pretty much most of it for a good section of that. Got freshies over here and working on this wall right here, some with forms, some using these screens, some complicated things going on with the screens. The screen actually, like, it works like a floating form that could like stay in place long term, but you got to get it really tight so that there's no holes in it if you want to do something over the top without holes staying in there. So in some places where there's something like this, I'm like razoring down so that the mortar can get in between the screen more easily. So the first kind of hook, that green ring, is up there. I got to add scotch tape to that, and this one. Both of those are cemented in, and working my way that way with the last of the ceiling. See how much can get done in one coat. And I haven't done a full undercoat for all of it yet, because this whole area here still needs the undercoat, but the ladder's in pretty good position to do that, so let's see if I can get that done in this next batch as well, because that adds a lot of strength to the structure, as well as tying it into this shape, which will make it so the arch has less kind of like wobbleability due to its shape. Once one side is tied in, the whole thing will be quite rigid. So this connection point between this shape and that shape, which the connection point is that line right there, that'll be really important for both structures' stability. So on to the mortar. So here's how the dragon scaling on the armor turned out, or the armor on the dragon scaling, the solar scaling dragon armor. Gets pretty good coverage. I figure I could fit 8 more up there. There's 12 total, 1200 watts, so I could get up to 2 kilowatts. Right now it's not plugged in, it's just providing the shade. And then the structure down there, good progress. And I got another 2 batches on today. And I haven't touched the column or the big arch in over 2 weeks now, but I'm working my way from the corner. The arch is in the corner, and then I'll work my way back. And that's all for this episode. Thanks for tuning in.